Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be the only person who looks like you in an entire town? To walk into a store and feel 100 eyes subtly, or not so subtly, watching your every move? Have you ever traveled to a place only to realize that the air around you is thick with unspoken messages, ones that whisper, "You don't belong here"? For Black travelers venturing across America, this experience is more than just an occasional inconvenience. It is a stark reality in some states where diversity is an afterthought and inclusion is a challenge. While America is often celebrated as a melting pot of cultures and races, certain places remain overwhelmingly white, not just demographically, but also in their social attitudes and cultural fabric. Whether due to deep-seated history, political conservatism, or rural isolation, these states have reputations for being less than welcoming to Black visitors and residents alike. From microaggressions to outright hostility, from racial profiling to the chilling presence of historical hate groups, these places make it clear that some travelers should tread carefully. So, join us on this thought-provoking journey as we explore the top 10 whitest states in the U.S., where Black people often feel unwelcome. This is not just about demographics. It's about lived experiences, societal attitudes, and the invisible barriers that continue to shape America's racial landscape. 10. Iowa, the Heartland's unseen divide. Iowa, known for its golden cornfields and picturesque rural landscapes, is a classic representation of America's heartland. However, beneath the surface of its small-town charm lies a reality that many Black residents and visitors find unsettling. With a population that is over 84% white and a Black community of only 4%, Iowa's racial disparities run deep. Black Iowans are incarcerated at a rate 7 times higher than their white counterparts, a statistic that reveals the systemic inequalities at play. The struggle for economic opportunity is equally evident. Home ownership rates among Black residents are among the lowest in the country. In rural towns, it's common for Black travelers to feel like an anomaly, drawing uncomfortable stares and whispers. While cities like Des Moines offer a more diverse atmosphere, the rest of the state remains largely homogeneous, making integration difficult for those who stand out. 9. West Virginia, the shadow of the past. West Virginia is a state frozen in time. Nestled within the Appalachian Mountains, its rolling hills and coal towns tell stories of a rugged past. But for Black visitors, the narrative is often one of exclusion rather than adventure. With a 92% white population and a Black community making up barely 4%, diversity here is scarce. Conservative small towns carry lingering remnants of Confederate nostalgia, and the political climate is often resistant to discussions about racial progress. Black residents report high levels of economic hardship, job discrimination, and an ever-present sense of being an outsider. Charleston, the state capital, provides some respite, but venture into the smaller towns, and the message is clear. West Virginia remains one of the least hospitable places for Black people in America. 8. New Hampshire, the unspoken hostility. New Hampshire, a state known for its autumn foliage and independent spirit, is also one of the least diverse places in the country. With a Black population of just 2%, racial minorities here are few and far between. What makes New Hampshire particularly unwelcoming is not overt racism, but a silent kind, one that manifests in cold stares, social exclusion, and passive-aggressive encounters. Hate crimes have surged in recent years, with reports of racial slurs, intimidation, and even violence against Black residents. Many Black newcomers speak of the isolation they feel, as though they exist in a world that refuses to acknowledge them. While larger cities like Manchester offer some diversity, the overall atmosphere remains one of discomfort for those who don't fit the state's overwhelmingly white demographic. 7. Vermont, progressive, but only on paper. Vermont prides itself on being progressive, environmentally conscious, and politically liberal. Yet, despite its reputation, it remains one of the whitest states in America, with a Black population of just 1%. The issue here is not necessarily overt hostility, but rather an ignorance of diversity. Black residents often struggle with finding community, representation, and cultural spaces. Housing discrimination is a well-documented issue, and many Black individuals report experiencing subtle forms of exclusion. While Vermont may be welcoming in ideology, in practice, it remains a difficult place for Black people to feel at home. 6. Maine, cold winters, colder stares. Maine, with its breathtaking coastline and charming fishing villages, seems like the perfect place to escape the chaos of city life. However, for Black visitors and residents, Maine's 94% white population can make them feel like outsiders in an overwhelmingly homogeneous environment. Reports of racial profiling, microaggressions, and being followed in stores are common. Even well-meaning locals often exhibit an uncomfortable curiosity toward Black people, treating them as rare novelties rather than equals. For those seeking cultural diversity, Maine is an isolating experience. 5. South Dakota, a reluctance to change. South Dakota's vast landscapes and Badlands National Park attract tourists from all over, but its racial climate is far less inviting. With a Black population of only 2%, racial minorities face a constant struggle for acceptance. Rural areas harbor a deep-seated suspicion of outsiders, and Black residents frequently report being racially profiled. While the state has made strides in diversity within its larger cities, much of South Dakota remains a place where Black individuals are met with cold stares and unspoken hostility. 4. North Dakota, the frozen frontier of exclusion. North Dakota's harsh winters are not the only cold thing about the state. Its reception of Black residents and visitors can be just as frosty. With an 87% white population, diversity is scarce. Black individuals here often feel isolated, encountering racial bias in workplaces and public spaces. The state's rural communities are slow to embrace change, making it difficult for racial minorities to integrate. Even in the state's more developed areas, reports of discrimination and exclusion persist. 3. Idaho, the legacy of hate. Idaho has long struggled with its reputation as a haven for white supremacist groups, and while much has changed, echoes of the past still linger. The state is 91% white, and Black people make up less than 1% of the population. Although Boise is slowly diversifying, smaller towns remain hostile, with incidents of racial slurs and intimidation still occurring. The state's history with hate groups continues to cast a shadow over its present. 2. Wyoming, where diversity is an anomaly. With a Black population of less than 1%, Wyoming is one of the least diverse states in the nation. The conservative culture and lack of representation make it difficult for Black people to feel welcomed. Reports of racial profiling, job discrimination, and outright hostility are common. 1. Montana, the loneliest place for Black Americans. Montana tops this list as the least welcoming state for Black individuals. With an overwhelmingly white population and a history of racial exclusion, Black residents often feel like they don't belong. The state's conservative nature and isolationist mindset make it difficult for racial minorities to find acceptance, making Montana the most unwelcoming place for Black travelers in America. Conclusion: the silent barriers of America. While America continues to evolve, these states serve as reminders that racial inclusion is still an ongoing battle. For Black travelers and residents, understanding these realities is crucial in navigating where they will feel safe, accepted, and truly welcome.